Welcome to the Artist Detective, where we investigate the lives and art of the great artists. I am Rembrandt van Rijn, your host, the Dutch master from the 1600s. Perhaps you remember my Bible scenes and portraits, use of light and expressions? In today's episode, we will inquire into the life of Georgia O'Keeffe. She lived from 1887 to 1986. That's almost 100 years. She is another famous American artist. I still do not know about this America though, do you? She created art in the modernist style, but sadly, she did not like portraits, like me. But perhaps you will appreciate her art after this examination of her life and art. Hello, I am Georgia O'Keeffe. I am a modern realist painter who is best known for my large close-up paintings of flowers and for my paintings of the New Mexico landscape. I was born in 1887 in Wisconsin, and from an early age I noticed patterns, colors, and light. My father taught me to notice how changes in seasons changed the way the land and the sky looked. Though I attended school in a one-room schoolhouse, I also took art lessons in town. I learned to copy other artists' works, which is a good way to start, but I grew tired of this, and I wanted to paint my own pictures.
Yes, Georgia, we all get tired of imitating other artists and want to experiment in our own ways. I, Pablo Picasso, tried many different styles to promote modern art. You may be familiar with my blue period, my rose period, my cubism, collages, and surrealism, to name a few.
By 8th grade, I knew I wanted to be an artist, and I wanted to be famous. When my family moved to Williamsburg, Virginia, when I was 15, I attended Chatham Hall Episcopal Institute, and I was a serious artist. The other girls thought I acted like a queen of the studio, but I told them, I am going to live a different life from you girls. I am going to give up everything for my art. Though serious about my art, I have a mischievous, fun side, and I enjoy doing practical jokes and drawing caricatures with my classmates. I often try to bend or break the rules, and I became editor of the school yearbook. At the end of my 2 years at Chatham, I burned many of my watercolors and drawings, because when I became famous, I didn't want anyone to see my early failures.
Oui, I, Claude Monet, destroyed some of my impressionistic art too. That is, some of my water lily paintings, when I was unhappy with the results and tired of my critics.
I went on to take classes at the Art Institute of Chicago, where the human figure was emphasized, but I did not enjoy portraits. How could you not like portraits? After becoming ill, I did not return to Chicago, but I enrolled at the Art Students League in New York City, and I learned to paint still life. One day, I went to a gallery called 291 to see an exhibit of Auguste Rodin. My life changed that day, for I met the owner of 291, Alfred Stieglitz, who was a famous artist and photographer. He pushed my view of modern art and seemed to have vision about which new art had true value. He admired me, and several years later, without my permission, he displayed at his studio some of my charcoals that my friend had shown him in an exhibit called A Woman on Paper. How wonderful that you had your own exhibition! I, Berthe Morisot, had a difficult time gaining respect from the other Impressionists in France, who were mainly men and wanted to improve my paintings. I did get accepted into the salon, you know, the French art show, and I brought a woman's touch with my intimate scenes of domestic life. In the meantime, I had run out of money to live in New York, so I lived again in Chicago with my aunt, and I worked as an illustrator.
You know, Georgia, I consider myself an illustrator. I, Norman Rockwell, with my humorous depictions of everyday American life found on the covers of the Saturday Evening Post.
Then I taught art in Amarillo, Texas, my first exposure to the Wild West, which I fell in love with. Then I continued my studies at Columbia Teachers College in New York, and then I taught art at a college in Columbia, South Carolina. Eventually, my relationship with Alfred Stieglitz grew, and we married in 1924. I did not take the married name of Stieglitz because I wanted to maintain my own identity and independence. In fact, though we lived together in New York City in the winters and Lake George in the summers, after 1929, I began to spend my summers in New Mexico apart from Alfred. Eventually, I bought a place called Ghost Ranch, where I lived after Alfred died. While living in New York City, I liked to paint views of the city, of Brooklyn Bridge and Hudson River. Since city life is fast, I wanted people to be able to stop and look at nature, so I began to paint large, close-up pictures of flowers.
I, Andrew Wyeth, enjoy painting the people and landscapes in my hometown of Chaddsford, Pennsylvania, and at my summer house in Cushing, Maine. I am also a modern realist painter. If you added thick outlines, bended dots, and diagonal lines to your large close-up flowers, they could be pop art, like I, Roy Lichtenstein, based on comics and everyday objects.
Later, inspired by the New Mexico landscape, I painted southwestern scenes of churches, hills, and mountains, and bleached bones and skulls I found in the desert. By 1945, I had achieved my dream of becoming a famous artist. Exhibits of my work opened up at the Chicago Institute of Art, and the next year at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Alfred died in 1946, and I moved permanently to New Mexico in 1949. Though I had dreamed of becoming a famous artist, I preferred to stay out of the public eye and be alone. People can be such an annoying bother. I like to live simply and wear black. In 1971, I won the gold medal for painting from the National Institute of Arts and Letters, and in 1977, I won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. You can see my art at a special Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico, or at other large institutions in New York City or Washington, D.C. You may have even seen my art on stamps. Let's review about me. Repeat after me. Georgia O'Keeffe.
Georgia O'Keeffe.
1887 to 1986.
1887 to 1986.
Modern realism.
Modern realism.
Woman who dedicated her life to art.
Woman who dedicated her life to art.
Married to Alfred Stieglitz.
Married to Alfred Stieglitz.
Giant flowers.
Giant flowers.
New Mexico landscapes.
New Mexico landscapes.
Goodbye. Thank you for joining us on The Artist Detective. We look forward to seeing you next time when we investigate the lives and art of other great artists. Like me! And Georgia O'Keeffe.